Welcome to Short and to the Point, a podcast from the Comeback in Awful Announcing. Here's your host, Jessica Kleinschmidt.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Short and to the Point here on Awful Announcing and the Comeback. Really excited for my guest, one of my best friends in the whole wide world and one of the voices of the Athletics, Chris Caray. He made his MLB debut just in 2024 when the team was in Oakland. The one thing I love about him the most is we both grinded through the minors, and there's something very special about somebody in minor league broadcasting that you just have to go through it to understand it. And we both grinded through the Diamondbacks organization, which was cool because there's something very special about that organization, to watch it from its infancy and to see all of those guys up in the bigs like Corbin Carroll and getting his big shot and that extension. One of my favorite people, like I said, and part of a really great broadcast team that went through a lot, obviously, in 2024. So here's my chat with him. Well, I promised you a special guest, and I wouldn't lie to you. Chris Caray joins me, and I'm surprised it's taken us this long for you to be here. So, Chris, welcome to Short and to the Point.
I'm so excited to be here. Yeah, it has taken a while. I was waiting for my invite about 3.5 months ago. But you know what? We've had plenty of non-recorded podcasts, but plenty of time to spend together. So I'm glad I get to come on your show now.
Maybe that's what it is, because I feel like we talk enough where I feel like we've been recording a lot over the last year, though, to be fair.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, because you just finished your first official MLB season. You grinded through the minors, and we'll talk about the minor grind here in a little bit. But like I said, post first MLB season with the then Oakland A's, they're now just the Athletics. Did your first MLB season come as advertised?
I think it was a wonderful experience. It was a great time. I think, anytime that you get the opportunity to call a major league game, whether it's one game or 70, in my case, you want to take advantage of that opportunity. And, from day one, whether it was my bosses at NBC or from the A's camp or my broadcast partners or people among the broadcast team like you, I felt very welcomed. And I think that allowed me to really be myself from day one and, take the reins and make it my own. And, now I feel a lot more comfortable and I love where I work and I love who I work with.
And it's interesting because you called mainly home games, so you were able to get the walk-off scenario. I think about the bingo card that you get when you get to call games, and everybody has the walk-off, you get the home run call because you get to make it your own. Do you have like a mental bingo card that you kind of keep track of, like the first time that you get to call these certain plays or home runs or those types of things?
Well, I think if you look at my, the metaphorical bingo card, my first ever game on April 12th, I put 2 down on the bingo card because you know how you start in the center, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Major League bingo card, it's call a major league game. That's your centerpiece.
Boom.
And then at the end of the game, Lawrence Butler hits a walk-off to score Max Schumann to beat the Washington Nationals in my first game. So I got 2 on the board immediately, and I think it just came as a surprise, but baseball has a very cosmic way about it. And I was able to, I think, capture the moment in a way that I think that I will probably improve upon. But that was the tone setter for me and for the fan base to see this is what this kid is about. This is how he calls the game. And this is, the style that we are going to be accustomed to now going forward.
You mentioned the tone setter. I will say you were a little bit spoiled. This was your first season. You didn't have to deal with everything else that the A's went through over the last couple of seasons. I mentioned, did it come as advertised? You got a kind of a first impression with this team, up and coming. 69 wins doesn't seem like a lot, but the win column didn't really matter because they certainly improved. What were your impressions of this team for the 2024 season?
I think you go back to what Mark Kotsay said at spring training last year, and he said this team's going to surprise a lot of people. They had a lofty goal of being a 500 team. Obviously, they came short of that mark, and maybe they were a year behind schedule or a year ahead of schedule in this case. And I think this could be a very easy 500-plus team in 2025. I mean, you saw the makeup. You saw guys like Brent Rooker take even bigger steps after an all-star season in 2023, should have been a shoo-in for the all-star in 2024. Guys like Lawrence Butler, JJ Bleday, Shea Langoliers all carried their weight, and then pitching, and especially relief pitching, was very, very helpful. And you saw a level of cohesion with these guys. And you can see during the offseason why a few guys that were free agents decided to come back, because they are building a culture with this A's team, and, chemistry, culture, the ability to play together, and not just play for yourself are all very good determining factors of a winning team. And I think that that's what they're going to go for.
And with these A's, it's really cool because that they're so young. I've gotten to watch them from the minors, and I feel like when it comes to broadcasters, reporters, the minor league grind is no different than a player, and you went through it. It's like when you're an entrepreneur, I feel like you have to work in the restaurant business, you have to work in retail, and you dealt with the minor league grind. Everybody pulls the tarp. Doesn't matter what job title you have, you're pulling the tarp. The minor league grind, how would you define it, and why do you think that's so important for you?
I would not take back my 2 years in Amarillo for the world. Obviously, I was with the Diamondbacks organization then, but my brother and I, while we were working together, had a pretty good understanding of how to operate in the clubhouse. And I think the guys resonated with it very quickly. We still have a good relationship with guys like Blaze Alexander and Corbin Carroll and Slade Ciccone and so forth and so on in that organization. And when you talk about the minor league grind, especially with me, I was very pampered compared to most minor league announcers. I mean, we never wanted for anything. Tony Enzer, who was the general manager, made sure that we were taken care of in every way possible, and we responded in kind by doing the best job that we could. And obviously, after 2 years in the minors, getting to the major leagues, that was my way of paying him back. And so, for anybody that's trying to get to the big leagues, I feel like the minor leagues is the only avenue where you can really experience creating connections, getting in front of scouts and players. And if you do a good job and you treat them with kindness and respect, they will remember you. Mm-hmm. So much so that when I arrived with the Oakland A's and we were at Hohokam for my first day, guys like Lawrence Butler, Max Schumann, Brett Harris all remembered, hey, wait, you're the twin that was broadcasting for Amarillo when you would come around in Midland. So these guys are not, one-track mind. They will remember you. And I think that that's important for everybody to know and understand. And also, as the disparity between the minor leagues and the major leagues are totally different. In the minor leagues, you're on a 13-hour bus ride to Corpus Christi, sleeping on the floor. Because you're the broadcaster, you don't get dibs on any seat whatsoever. You take the last seat. And then you get to the big leagues and you're flying a private chartered plane to go to a 5-star hotel. So, but it is all about the work that you put in. And if you're lucky enough to get to the position that I've been lucky enough to get in this early, you definitely don't take the time that you had in the minors, however long or short, for granted.
And you mentioned the Diamondbacks, because I got my start in the Diamondbacks organization as well with the Reno Aces. It's so cool to watch that farm system grow over the years, because the names that you mentioned, certainly, but AA is so interesting because AAA is somewhat needed, but not as imperative as AA. But the Diamondbacks organization, the farm system over the years has certainly grown. So what's it like? You mentioned Corbin Carroll, watching him grow and obviously getting that extension and the money that he deserves. It's been pretty awesome over these last few seasons.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Mike Hazen has done an incredible job. Josh Barfield had his fingerprints all over this young core. Now, obviously, he's the assistant general manager of the Chicago White Sox that are really trying to replenish their farm system. And they've done a really good job this offseason, making some great moves. And, it's still going to be a few years until they're really competitive. But, the Diamondbacks are a fun club. They went to the World Series 2 years ago. And I think everybody was surprised by that. And it's a team and a destination spot to play in Phoenix, Scottsdale, Arizona, and to be able to represent that team that has a very good fan base and a very fun fan base. But, it's not just limited to the Diamondbacks. It's just seeing how everything is structured, right? The minor leagues are really important. AA is really important because that's where all the prospects are. In the Texas League, which, I'm a little bit biased, is, I believe, the best league in all of minor league baseball. It is the most historic. If you ask somebody like Dallas Braden, who played in the Texas League, I say, hey, what is the most competitive, hardest league that you had to prove yourself in? He says, by far, the Texas League. And so I got to see that night in and night out for 2 years and see guys like Zach Geloff and Lawrence Butler and Corbin Carroll and many, many more. And now they are stars in the major leagues.
And you mentioned like the developmental stuff, and like they're not getting as much coverage. Like if you're not watching the, I want to say like the wiry type of video footage that you're getting, and you're not the ones that are obsessed, or, you're a family member that's watching, your brother or your son. What are some of the things you might miss if you're not the one streaming it on your laptop? Because these things that take place, unless you're a diehard or, like I said, a family member, you can miss some pretty awesome talent.
Well, I think, that's a really great question. And I will respond by telling you a story about 2 years ago. There was a player named Leandro Cedeno from Venezuela that the Diamondbacks org had. He was listed 195 pounds, according to MLB.com, on his MILB page. He came in at 296 pounds at 6'3". So big guy, big power guy in a ballpark that was kind of a, jack in the box ballpark. Like you could hit the ball out if you just got underneath it. He hit the ball 527 feet to dead center. And, it got a lot of attention at one point, but people that were watching it live didn't really understand the gravity of the situation because you didn't have TrackMan, you didn't have all those other things. And then everybody measured it and said, oh, it could have gone 560. They didn't even take into account wind or elevation. So there are some phenomenal feats that are achieved in the minor leagues, but because the coverage is so small and because it is only limited to that little market, whether it's Amarillo or Fort Wayne or whatever you have, you're not going to get the same audience. That's why I encourage a lot of people, whether you're a big baseball fan or not, the minor leagues is a different animal and it's just as fun. It's just, a little bit more marketing savvy. The names of the teams, the mascots, the stuff they do in between innings. It is truly family-friendly fun in baseball. And then, obviously Major League Baseball is wonderful, but because it's a multi-billion-dollar organization, it becomes a little bit more corporate.
You mentioned the names. I saw the most recent one, Bathtub Donkeys. Did you see that one?
Yeah, isn't that who is that? It's a team in New York, isn't
it? Is it the Rumble Ponies, the former Rumble Ponies?
Yeah, Binghamton maybe. Yeah,
Binghamton
I think that
Ponies.
might be
Yeah,
yeah.
Jim Tebow used to be on that team.
Yeah, well, we had the calf fries in Amarillo, and if you know what those are, they're Rocky Mountain oysters.
Oh.
Which are fried bull. It's an appendage in the midsection.
That I do not possess. I possess those emotionally, but not.
Maybe you possess them more than I do. I mean, you're really the man in this relationship.
When we're talking about Twilight, I certainly do.
Oh, absolutely. So we had to try them live on the air. I mean, it's different. The minor leagues are different, and I really enjoyed my time. But trust me, I'm very glad to be where I am now.
Good. And you mentioned different, and you also mentioned Dallas Braden, one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. And when it comes to him, I worked with him for years, and I feel like he is literally a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get. From the time when you started with him to now, what were you expecting to get with him as a broadcast partner? And as time went on, your relationship grew, and just overall spending time with him in the booth, how's that been?
It's been fantastic. I mean, the guy is one of the best analysts in the game for a number of reasons. He's comical, he's analytical, he's able to break things down in a way that is simple for people, but he also is able, when it's necessary, to get a little bit deeper and a little bit more scientific. So he is as well-rounded as they come. When it comes to Dallas, he gets serious when the game starts. Right. My audition, I was expecting Dallas to kind of kick his feet up and, he had already done a bunch of different auditions, like 4 or 5 of them. And I was one of the last ones. And I was assuming he would be tired or whatever. I get in there and he's stone-faced serious. And I'm like, this is not the Dallas Braden that, from social media. He takes his job incredibly seriously. He is dedicated to his craft. He is so involved, when he goes out in the field and watches bullpens, he does it and gets there early. I mean, this guy has work ethic on top of work ethic. And, getting to know him in a working capacity has been great. In a personal capacity, I didn't travel very much, so I didn't get to see him as much because he would go home to Stockton after the home games. So hopefully I will get the opportunity to develop more of a friendship with him if he's open to it, of course, starting this season.
And overall, this broadcast team, I'm biased, of course. I just obviously love this group, but we all have our own personalities and we somehow all like puzzle together, but we're all uniquely weird in our own ways, but very much knowledgeable, and we even each other out. How do you describe all of us as a group? I'm putting you on the spot. I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, I'm the baby of the group.
You are the baby.
In more ways than one. Yeah. I think I really care about making sure everybody's in a good place. I've never really tried to be a me guy, even though I think that there are probably some narratives out there because of my last name that they would expect that. Mm-hmm. When it comes to you, you are fiercely loyal and you remember things and you remember to do very kind things for our group. I believe your versatility is something that people don't talk about enough. You can be an analyst, you can be a host, you can be a reporter, you can lead the scrums. A lot of things that most of us can't do. Another person that's very versatile is Jenny Kavnar. Mm-hmm. She's a host and a play-by-play, and she's, championing this new era for A's broadcasting as the first lead female play-by-play broadcaster in Major League history. I mean, that's got to be pretty tough. And she has done it very well and taken everything in stride. And, she's an even better person behind the scenes. Dallas, obviously, we've explained what he is. I mean, he's a wild card. He's fun. He keeps everything light, but he also knows how to hold everybody accountable when it's necessary. Johnny Dosko, when you talk about fun, I mean, there's nobody more fun than Johnny. He is so kind, so fun-spirited, the best actor that I have met in a long time. He's able to play tricks and jokes, and you never know when he's serious or not. And obviously, an incredible talent that probably should have gotten his shot decades ago at the major league level. Ken Korak, kind of the godfather. He is, what you see is what you get. A Bay Area Sports Hall of Famer, a guy that probably should be winning the Frick Award at some point in the not so distant future. Yeah. And just a very kind, caring person, and somebody that if he believes he can't put out 100%, he is not going to put out the product. He gives his all into every broadcast, and we know that behind the scenes. And then guys like Chris Townsend. Townie's a talker. He's a great host. He's really good at doing things by himself. And, he's a workhorse, just like everybody on that radio team, including you. And then obviously Cody Elias keeps everything light as well. And, I think we have a very unique opportunity and a very fun opportunity to showcase even more of these personalities as we enter a new era in Sacramento. But I wouldn't change any of our group for the world. And I'm lucky I landed with this group because it could have been a lot different for me.
Yeah, I know it's really exciting because I think about like when we have our press dining and I look around at everybody. I'm like, oh, we are so lucky. Like it's awesome.
We are.
And just how like the personalities alone, but like just like you mentioned, like how we're all so talented in our own ways, and I feel like we can finish each other's sentences and just know what we're all thinking, and it just works out so beautifully. And that's a nod to Delaire and just like how they always see something that perhaps we don't until later on. Things like kind of like, oh, this is what they're saying. It reminds me of like a front office, right? Like David Forrest, you're kind of like, what are you doing? And then time goes on, you're like, this is what you saw. You know what I mean?
Well, you can't fake chemistry. And like we talked about, I'll harken back to the guys in the field, the level of cohesion will create success. And we're seeing that happen. And I think having a cohesive unit, everybody kind of knowing their role and understanding where they operate, and everybody liking everybody makes the job that much easier. And I think that's exactly what Delaire has strived for. And to Devin Fox on the NBC side, to try and bring in personnel that she believed that everybody would get along with and everybody would like, and that would resonate with this fan base, whether in Oakland or now Sacramento, that needed some positives. And hopefully we brought that across the airwaves in 2024, and hopefully that continues in 2025 and beyond.
Agreed. Obviously the Caray name is no stranger to the broadcasting community. So when you carry that name, and you mentioned it really quickly. Is there extra pressure there knowing that you're carrying that and it's attached to sports and of course you being a newbie? What's the connection there? And is it a weight on your shoulder? Are you worried about that at all?
I think that there is pressure. I think people make it out to be more pressure than it is, right? I'm a very cerebral kind of overthinking type of person anyway. To have this name is a blessing and it is a curse. And I think people forget about the fact that it can be a curse, is because there are a lot of people that want to see you fail. There are a lot of people that pass judgment on you before they even know you. And then when you prove them wrong, you have to work twice as hard to do so. I don't like being behind the 8 ball before somebody even knows me. And that's been a unique challenge. It's pressure in the sense that since I was 4 years old, anybody that knew about the legacy would say, are you going to, carry on the family name and broadcast? It was almost like it was planted into my brain from a very young age, but it had its positives and it had its negatives. And, that desire and that fuel allowed me to get where I wanted to go probably a lot sooner than a lot of people expected. And now I'm able to perform at this level, and the pressure has definitely dwindled a bit. And I think that that's a really important thing too, because I don't need to feel that pressure. I got a great team. I got great friends. I got family members that support me, and obviously the fan base has been great to me as well. And, anything extra is great, but I like what I have right now, and I'm going to be positive about that.
You were 4. Is that as early as you remember somebody asking you about that?
Yeah, I have a really good memory. Whether we were in Chicago, they would shake my little hand or whatever, or ruffle my hair, and they were like, are you going to be next? And, I never really was able to conceptualize what that meant at that point. When I was 8 or 9 years old, I actually kind of understood what my dad did. Before that, it was dad goes to work and dad's away for 6 months of the year. But then as things developed, then I started being, well, this is actually pretty cool. We're going to Philadelphia for the National League Championship Series in 2008. And he's calling it. And I'm like, why are we going to Philadelphia? Wait, dad's working there? Why is he there? And then, you get a glimpse of what it is. And my dad did a really good job of shielding us from that until we were ready. And, it's allowed us to progress in our careers at a speedier rate than most, I think.
And you mentioned your dad when the Cardinals were in town. He did such a beautiful job talking to the media. He didn't say no to any media at all. He talked to A's Cast, he talked to NBC, and it was so cool because he was like a well-oiled machine, and he wasn't, short-sighting anybody. He just made sure his answers were thoughtful and honest too, and he was authentic, and I thought that was really important. So you were calling the game for NBC, and he was calling the game for Bally, and it was so important because it was not only just a historic day, but you guys got to be there for each other. And like I said, like really honest, talking about how historic of a day it was. But it felt like it was, I don't even know how to describe it. It was more than just the Careys doing it together. It was just like a father and son. But the thing that I think about the most is you constantly saying, I wish Stephen were here. Or Stephen, not even that, Stephen deserves to be here. And you're so amazing about always thinking about him. And so walk me through that day. And then after, I want you to talk about a little bit why you always want to refer to Stephen in these certain scenarios.
Well, you're pulling at my heartstrings a little bit. It was a quick response time. I mean, 3 days after my, first major league game, I'm seeing my dad, and I couldn't tell whether my major league debut or, being one booth away from my father was going to be a bigger, more important moment. And I think we have both got to the ballpark early. I don't know how he got there. I don't know if it was a bus or whatever. He taxied to the stadium, but he made sure, because he knew it was an important day to me, to be there for all of the reporters, and he knew what was ahead of him. And I think treating everybody with that level of respect is exactly what he's done for the last 35 years in his career. Reputation is everything. You know that. And, we spent a lot of time together on the field, but we didn't really have a moment where it was just us taking it in together, which is okay, because I think everybody kind of wanted to be involved and say congratulations, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I think my dad felt like there was a bit of sadness that existed because my brother wasn't there. And he knew that even though it was one of the best days of my life, I couldn't be all the way 100% there. But I think for him, he was able to take it in fully 100% and look at me and to say, wow, he made it. He made it at 24 like I did. And, that was a very special moment for me. And also it was Jackie Robinson Day. So there was a lot of different great.
Why not, right? Why not?
Yeah, everything came together in the right way. So it was great. And, we go to St. Louis this year. Hopefully I'm on the plane there and we can run it back, in a place where he was born and raised and a place that's been so great to him.
And you kind of mentioned it earlier, and I don't want to moneyball it, but baseball has a way of, tugging at your heartstrings and being romantic. I feel like there's something so special about this sport that makes it that way. I'm not bashing on NBA or NFL or anything, and I think golf, you can probably say, I don't know if it's the speed of the game, but there's times where I'm like, you can't do that in other sports. Like there's just those ways. And it's happened to me multiple times across covering this sport. Why do you think it is about this sport that you're just like, come on, man, like that's goosebumps. That's Valentine's Day. That's heart eye emojis or something there.
I think that it's a combination of a few things. The history behind the game. I mean, it's America's pastime. Even though I don't like hearing that it's the pastime because it kind of, the operative word there is past. And I think this game is actually progressing in a way that it will be the future of our country. You look at the ratings in the playoffs and the way that players are starting to be marketed, and it's not going like this, it's going like this. And, I think the history is important because baseball and America have been intertwined for almost 200 years, whether it was during World War I or after World War II, Babe Ruth, Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier, Henry Aaron, the all-time home run king, and then, right across the bay, Barry Bonds breaking that record. I mean, there's so many different personalities. And yes, we talk about the superstars and they're put on a pedestal in a way, but I like seeing a guy like Max Schumann, who grinded in the minors for 4 or 5 years, was a 20th round pick, make his debut and have his dream come true. And when all the odds were probably stacked against him, when he believed he was an organizational guy, and he's able to debut and stay with the team the entire year. Or a guy like Brett Harris, whose first 2 hits in the major leagues were home runs. And I have personal relationships with those guys. And I think people really gravitate towards those stories. You can't get that in football. When you get drafted to play in the NFL, you're either on the practice squad or you're on the main roster or you're cut. In the NBA, you can go to the G League, but it's one step away, right? When you're in baseball, if you're a 21-year-old kid, you're probably starting in low A and you have to work through 4 levels before getting to the big leagues. You have to be the best across 4 levels on top of being the best in little league, middle school, high school, college if you go. Right? No other sport has that. And so you're seeing the best of the best, the cream of the crop rise to the top, and you can't get that anywhere else. And I think that there is a beautiful side of the game that you cannot experience with football or basketball or soccer. And that's why I love it so much. And that's why I've tried to make it my life's goal to broadcast baseball.
You mentioned the past. You weren't at the Coliseum finale. I tried FaceTiming you, but it was really loud. I remember that day, which was rude, by the way. I was in shambles and you weren't there. Dallas couldn't be there for me either because he was also in shambles. It was awesome, but like a hot mess. You got to spend a lot of time at the Coliseum, of course. And so when you're seeing people saying goodbye to this very historic place, a very unique place, when you took it in and you met the fans and you got to see the uniqueness of this concrete slab, if you will, what are you most upset to say goodbye to?
Well, I think the fans are the most important, right? I mean, you can have a stadium and you can have all of that history, but it's the people that make the stadium. And, Dallas would say frequently on the air, if there was 300,000 fans from other teams and you had to pick from, 29 other teams, 10,000, people per team, and you had 500 A's fans, he's taken the 500 every single time and betting the house on them.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to see that. I mean, this is a very charitable group. They bring you gifts. Their feedback is good. The expectation is high. They hold you accountable. However, they are kind when you mess up. They are gracious when you support their team, if you give them your time. And I owe them so much. And I think that I will miss that group very much in Oakland. And I hope that many of them decide to at least make the pilgrimage to Sacramento once or twice so I can see them and give them a hug or shake their hands. And even though I don't have the relationship with them like Dallas has, and I don't think anybody ever will, I'm so grateful for them and for welcoming me, because Oakland and the Oakland Coliseum will always be the place where I spent my first big league season. Nobody can ever take that away from me.
What were your most memorable calls for your first season?
I think for the first game, obviously a walk-off call. It wasn't my favorite, but I think if you're talking about memorable, it was fun. I think getting to know Mason Miller and kind of going underneath him and giving him the Reaper nickname was a lot of fun. I think being able to personalize these guys in a way and have a little bit of fun with it is great. And then, my favorite call was the JJ Bleday walk-off against Toronto. They won 2-1. It was on the first pitch in the ninth. I think it was Chad Green who was pitching, and Bleday didn't waste any time, and I think I was able to arise to the occasion and deliver a moment that I think a lot of people won't forget. Certainly JJ, I won't. His family, I don't think, will, and there's more to come.
My favorite moment is when you didn't know the difference between a spider and a snake.
Oh man, I still have the video. I need to post that at some point.
Yeah.
Well,
Were we playing the Diamondbacks?
We were playing the Rays because
Okay.
Ryan Pepio was on the mound.
Okay.
And so I'll be quick about the story. You do a lot of background research, secondary, tertiary information. And I'm reading, and it says, well, doctors have theorized that this knee injury that the sidelined Pepio for a month might have been because of a spider bite. So I'm saying this to Dallas, and I'm going to say to Dallas, we're having fun. We don't always need to say ball two. What type of spider can pack that kind of punch? And this is where Dallas's zany knowledge comes to play. And he's like, well, I think the wolf spider, the Mexican jumping spider, the brown recluse. And I'm like, okay, I got a coherent sentence across and I got the question right. I can breathe. So I basically totally flushed the information that I had just introduced and offered up. And as he's saying, oh, the brown recluse, right after I say the Western Diamondback rattlesnake, his hand is on the mute button. He's looking at me and he goes like that. And I'm sitting there and I'm wide-eyed. And, he gets off and he's like, well, no, not a spider, but, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. And then, so as the inning progresses.
It goes silent, by the way.
It goes silent. But as the inning progresses, I remember Lawrence Butler comes up to the plate and I'm like, Lawrence Butler is coming up to the plate for the third time. He probably knows the difference between a snake and a spider. And I bring it back, and obviously Dallas is laughing. We're having a good time, but that's what's so fun about the game is we are not these celebrities or these TV personalities that everybody makes us out to be. We're human beings, and I think the more that you humanize yourself, I think the more you endear yourself to your fan base.
Right.
I make mistakes every single game.
Totally.
I will continue to make mistakes every single game, but sometimes a mistake can be better than a success, and in that case. It was a funny, memorable moment that everybody says, oh, well, he might not know the difference between a snake or a spider, but he was able to recover in a way that was funny, poke fun at himself, and not take himself too seriously. I think that's what the game of baseball and what we do is all about.
Some, quote, stupid questions I've asked have turned into brilliant answers. You can ask Matt Olson that.
Well, when I get the chance to, when they come to Sacramento, I'll definitely ask him that.
It's one of those things, though, I remember, because once Susan Slusser told me she's asked a stupid question or 7, I'm like, okay, so it's normal. But it was actually really cool because he broke like an individual record of some sort, but the team lost. And I was like, okay, well, you broke a record. You're obviously more upset because the team lost. He's like, yeah, obviously. And this was Zoom time where everybody could hear the question. And I got my butt handed to me on Twitter. I was like, why would you ask that? Why would you ask that? I'm like, well, I did prove to you that he cares more about the team than his own individual, which not a bad thing.
No,
So,
right.
yeah,
And
totally. So
you've asked tens of thousands of questions,
Mhm.
if you were batting 1,000 and did not have any flaws in your questions, you wouldn't be here because it's impossible. And so, sometimes bad questions can really yield great answers because sometimes you simplify it for these guys and they run with it.
Yeah.
I've not experienced a bad question from you yet, but when I do, I will absolutely say, you know what? You've dropped the ball on this one for the first time in 4 years. So,
well, if you're not cringing, you're not growing. I always say.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, sometimes when I'm cringing, I'm like, oh God, that was bad. But you know what? That just means I'm different from that person I once was.
That's exactly what happens when you listen to me on the air.
It's not true. You did a fantastic job. And like I said, I know when you came into this, the first thing that you said was like, I know my last name's Caray, and you said the Nepo baby thing, but it was such an endearing thing of you, but you not only exceeded expectations from your career and your talents, but just as a human being. You were my favorite people in the whole wide world. And I think you know that, but I'm just so excited for the season coming up. And the fact that you're only going to get better from here is just very exciting. I can't wait to watch.
Well, I'm so glad that the facade has worked and I've tricked you so far.
Yeah, we're going to see the real, we're going to talk about cringy. We're going to see the real Chris Caray.
Oh, no, nobody needs to see that. No, I appreciate the kind words. I am nothing without my team to support me. And, I'm just, a little spoke on the wheel, and the wheel keeps turning with or without me. Maybe it's a little bit more difficult for the wheel to keep rolling with one spoke out, but I know that the rest of the spokes will pick up the weight if I went down or disappeared or whatever. And I'm just so grateful for the kindness of our organization, the friends that I've made along the way, and the memories that I will continue to make with this group, because again, I'm living my dream. Somebody gave me a chance. And I think for a lot of people, all they need is a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they'll fall flat on their butt, but sometimes people will be able to not only get up and jog, but they'll be able to start to sprint. And, I would like to believe that I was able to do that. And I would like to believe that hopefully I earned the trust and respect of not only the Oakland A's fans, but A's fans across the globe.
I agree. You definitely did. And I know they were very happy with everything that you did, and going to be an exciting chapter. And thank you for stopping by short and to the point. I appreciate it.
Well, I know this for us, this podcast, this conversation is short and to the point, because usually we're on the phone for 2.5 hours at a time. But
I know.
I have loved watching you grow, and I think that, I'm not going to give any little teasers about this season, but I think that, Jess Kleinschmidt and everything that she's going to do and accomplish, you're going to see exactly why she's in the position that she is. And, it's going to be amazing. And as a person, as a friend, as a coworker, I can't tell you how many people love you. I am one of those people. And I can't wait to see what you do as well. And hopefully many, many more years of us just shooting the shit. So I really appreciate you and giving me the time and the platform to talk about all this.
You're the best.
No, that's all you. I'll take second place.
Works for me. That works for me. That was Chris Caray, one of the voices of the Athletics. We have a lot coming up in the 2025 season. Thanks to him for stopping by short and to the point on Awful Announcing and the Comeback. We will see you next time here on Short and to the Point.
Want even more short and to the point? Follow Jessica at KleinschmidtJD and head over to thecomeback.com and awfulannouncing.com.